Hey guys, hope you're doing well. A bit of a different one for me today. I'm going to be talking to you more so than I have before. More specifically, in this case, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how I feel about the Romelu Lukaku to Chelsea deal and why I think it's bad for the club. Firstly, I just want to get it out there that this isn't me criticising the fact that we're signing Lukaku, because personally I'm actually very happy that we are buying him. I think he's the best at what he does, not in terms of being the best striker in the world, but I think that in terms of being a big, massive hold-up play striker who can score goals, I don't think that there are many better than him. In terms of being the best striker in the world, I'd say he's at least top 5, maybe even you could argue a case for him being top 3. But again, I can't help but feel like this just reinforces how bad Chelsea are in the transfer market and how bad we are at developing our young players and then either buying them back later on or regretting it later down the line. So Fabrizio Romano has just tweeted a picture of Romelu Lukaku leaving the Milan airport about half an hour ago, showing that he's completed his medical and saying that he's on the way to London to make the transfer finalised. The deal is sort of looking to be around 115 million euros or closer to 100 million pounds, bearing in mind that we actually sold Lukaku to Everton for 32.8 million pounds back in 2014. And obviously the market's changed since then, and if it was today's standards, would he have maybe sold for a bit more? Probably. But you can't help but ignore the fact that this is about 60 million pounds that Chelsea have lost in selling him and having to buy him back. Focusing more specifically on Lukaku, because again, I want to emphasise the fact that I am really happy that we're buying Lukaku because, as I've said before, I think he's a fantastic striker. I think he's going to fix Chelsea's goal scoring problem, the lack of goals coming from the forwards in that Chelsea team. For those of you that don't know, Chelsea's top goal scorers last season were joint 2 players on 11 goals, and those 2 players were Timo Werner and Tammy Abraham, who barely got a look in the last half of the season. I'm not going to hide my frustration with the Tammy Abraham situation, because it is really frustrating when you've got your top goal scorer on the bench in the FA Cup final and a Champions League final and even league games, because he's the kind of player a bit like Lukaku, and don't get me wrong, Lukaku is obviously miles better than Tammy Abraham, and I just want to get it out there that I'm not saying that we should be starting Tammy Abraham and not getting Lukaku, because I think that if we can keep hold of Tammy Abraham, it then gives him the option to hopefully learn from Lukaku and become a better striker, which would be the ideal scenario in a way. But I can't hide my frustration in the fact it feels like history is repeating itself with when we let Lukaku go for 32.8 million and now we're buying him back later on. Will this be the same thing with Tammy? Why don't we nurture our young players? And this is something that I'm going to get into a bit later on in the video. Tammy Abraham has been our top goal scorer for 2 seasons in a row. And I don't think you can underlook that, but for whatever reason Thomas Tuchel is. There is something in Tammy Abraham that Tuchel clearly doesn't like, and for whatever reason that means that he's not getting a look in, even below Giroud when Giroud was with us. And I can't emphasise how excited I am that Lukaku is coming to Chelsea. After turning us down a few years ago, that doesn't matter to me, because this guy is the same guy that for Manchester United, for West Brom, for Everton, in his time in the Premier League, averages a goal every 169 minutes. He's scored 4 goals in 5 games at the Euros just gone, which is fantastic. And he obviously had a wonderful spell at Inter Milan, where in 72 games he got 59 goal contributions. And I think when you look at those stats on paper, they alone should be enough to say that this guy's guaranteed to get at least 20 goals in the Premier League should he come to Chelsea. Especially when you look at the attacking flair that we've got in support. And with that being said, as the reigning European champions, as a team that wants to look to win the Premier League and challenge Manchester City, challenge Manchester United, challenge even Liverpool, because it's important not to discount Liverpool this season with all of their players coming back. Obviously, they've signed Konate. I think it's really going to boost our chances in going and challenging for the Premier League title. But the wider scale of this video and what I really want to get my teeth stuck into with you guys is the fact that I cannot help but feel like it just reinforces the fact that Chelsea are not doing their transfer business or even developing their young players as well as we should. And I think one of the things that I loved with Frank Lampard and why I was so gutted when he was sacked, which I will get into later on, was the fact that he brought in all of these young players and he gave them a chance, and he almost breathed a new life into Chelsea, taking us away from this team that just buys the big marquee players that you know are going to succeed. I don't want to sound ungrateful in this video, because that's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm not trying to get at the fact that I don't like the fact that we're winning things, because I've been really lucky in my lifetime as a Chelsea fan that I've been able to see us win 2 Champions Leagues with this man behind us, Didier Drogba. I've been so lucky to see us win a handful of league titles and FA Cups and all the trophies that have gone with it and the domination that we've put in those seasons as well. I've been so lucky to see us play under wonderful managers like Antonio Conte, Jose Mourinho and Thomas Tuchel, because he's a fantastic manager as well, and I think he's starting to show his pedigree. Champions League aside, in the league he fixed our form and he's been fantastic. My problem isn't with the fact that we're winning things, it's about how we're running the club. And this is something that, again, I want to get into in finer detail. One of the things that as a Chelsea fan, I look at other clubs, maybe not like Man City, but teams like Manchester United and Liverpool especially, who will buy these players and will nurture them and coach them into being fantastic players. Whereas Chelsea have a history of just going out and splashing the cash on all of these fantastic players. We don't nurture these players into being fantastic players that they can be. And I think that when you look back at history, there are so many examples. Lukaku's a prime example. Again, we sold him for 32.8 million. We sold him because he wanted first team football and we couldn't find room in an ageing attack that had Loic Remy, who's 27. He wasn't as good as Romelu Lukaku, in my opinion. We had Fernando Torres, who was 30. We had Didier Drogba, who was 36. And Diego Costa, who we had just signed. Now, I'm not saying that I would have preferred Lukaku to start over Diego Costa, because Diego Costa, as a Chelsea fan, has given me so many amazing memories, and he was a fantastic striker. One of the best strikers that we've had since Drogba. And I remember watching Lukaku in the Super Cup against Bayern Munich when we lost on penalties. And he was one of the players that missed the penalties. And I remember thinking afterwards, I wasn't angry with him because I knew and had seen the quality that he showed at West Brom and at Everton on his loan spells. And it pissed me off when we sold him. I don't think I was alone in seeing that he was a fantastic striker and a striker that was going to go up to the top in the way that he has done. He was already scoring over 10 goals, even over 15 goals a season in the Premier League in his 2 seasons. And yet Chelsea, for whatever reason, couldn't put him ahead of Fernando Torres, couldn't put him ahead of Loic Remy. Couldn't put him ahead of an ageing Didier Drogba. And now we're paying 100 million to get him back. And what's frustrating as well is that's not the only time that we've sold players, regretted it and ended up buying them back. We sold David Luiz for 44.5 million to PSG, bought him back 5 years later when they didn't want him anymore for 31.5. Now I appreciate that that was under different circumstances because David Luiz wanted the move, whereas Lukaku wanted first team football. There was never an issue with David Luiz's first team football. We had Nemanja Matic, who we sold for 4.5 million, ended up buying him back for 22.5 million. What kind of business is that? And then you have the more kind of popular ones that people bring up online, like Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah, how we've let them go and look at what they've gone on to do. And I think with Mohamed Salah it was a bit different because he had 11 games for Chelsea and I think he got 1 assist maybe, I may be wrong. But regardless, he never really showed the quality of being a Chelsea player. Now, that one doesn't anger me so much, but the Kevin De Bruyne one, on the other hand, really frustrates me. Even now it frustrates me. At the time when we sold Kevin De Bruyne, that was off the back of the season where we had him on loan at Werder Bremen. In 33 games, he got 10 goals and 9 assists as a central midfielder. And when he came back into the squad, he only played 3 games and got 1 assist. And the fact that he got 1 assist in those 3 games is not bad, again, for a central midfielder. And there were chances for him to break into the first team. I don't necessarily think that we would have thrown him straight into the first team, and I wouldn't have expected that because, with all due respect to the Bundesliga, it's not as competitive a league as the Premier League, and obviously there are differences in having to adapt from one league to another. He was clearly a fantastic player. He showed that he was a fantastic player at Werder Bremen. And then when we sold him, he went on to have a fantastic season in the Bundesliga again, and then moved to Manchester City, and the rest is history. We all know what's happened since. And Chelsea, more so than anyone, knows what's happened since. And Daniel Sturridge was another one that pissed me off. It really pissed me off when we sold him. Because again, he was another quality player that we let go, that we shouldn't have sold. Another quality English player that we sold. And the reason why I emphasise the fact that he's English is the fact that when registering players for the Premier League, you have quotas to fill a certain amount of players from England. And then that's why we've now got in this position where we're spending like 30 million on Danny Drinkwater, who's playing for the reserves. It's just a waste. It's a real waste. We sold Daniel Sturridge after he scored 11 goals in 28 games for Chelsea that season. It doesn't make sense. And we all know what he went on to do. He went on to nearly win the league with Liverpool. Ake. Ake's another one a bit similar to Fikayo Tomori, who's another one I'm going to get into later on. Now what we did with Ake was we tried to be clever and we tried to learn from our mistakes by adding in a release clause. A release clause that only Chelsea could activate that meant that we could buy him back for a certain price. I think it was about 20 million. Did we do that? No, we didn't. And now he's at Manchester City. And okay, he's not doing wonders at Manchester City. He barely gets a look in the first team. But it's another player that we could have nurtured and saved money on potential other transfers. And now Fikayo Tomori leads me on to sort of my next point, which I'm going to get into, which is about the young players at Chelsea. And when we loaned him out to AC Milan, I thought, okay, that's fine. If he's not going to get game time, it's better to get him game time at a massive club like AC Milan, where he's going to have eyes watching at him, so he can sort of understand the pressures of playing more regularly for Chelsea. But we were stupid enough to put an option to buy for Milan for 26 million. And now we're in the market for a centre-back. Why not keep these players? Because I don't know if you guys have seen anything from Tomori at AC Milan. I have. He's been fantastic. He's been brilliant. He's been a fantastic centre-back partnership with Kjaer. And again, the fact that we're now in the market to splash 50 million on a centre-back, we're looking at Koundé at the moment. And this is nothing against Koundé at all, because from what I've seen of Koundé, he looks like a brilliant centre-back as well. But once again, why do we not try and nurture these players into becoming a new Koundé, maybe even a better Koundé? Why don't we nurture our young players? Because what kind of message is that giving the youngsters? It's not giving them a positive message. It's not making them think, yes, I dream of playing for Chelsea. The only dream that they've got is going on loan for about 6 years and maybe getting a move to the Championship. It really just grinds my gears how we let these quality players go and then end up splashing the cash on either them again, or end up splashing the cash on a £50 million replacement that don't always work. You look at Chelsea's striker problem. We signed Alvaro Morata for a ridiculous amount of money and then sold him the following season. Yet, if we maybe tried to nurture some of these other players, or even were a bit more clever with the players that we bought, because let's face it, Alvaro Morata hasn't been a success wherever he's gone. And I don't think he's an awful striker, but do your research. You look at teams like Leicester, who are another example of teams that buy these players and nurture them into being fantastic players, spent less than £1 million, maybe around £1 million, on Jamie Vardy. They got Iheanacho for dirt cheap. And now they've got this Daka guy for about 22 million, who may follow the similar mould, he may not. But when you look at Jamie Vardy and when you look at Kelechi Iheanacho, they are doing wonders for Leicester at the moment. Yet Chelsea splash the cash on these marquee players that don't always work. We've got a fantastic youth system that we don't use. We've won 9 youth FA Cups, including 4 back-to-back between 2014 and 2018, and 2 back-to-back Premier League titles, under-19 Premier League titles. And yet these players rarely get a look in until Frank Lampard came and brought Mason Mount in, brought Tomori in, brought Abraham in, started bringing through Tino Andrew in, who I think is going to be a brilliant player if we can keep him. And it just really winds me up because, again, we splashed the cash, which is fine because it's clearly a business model that's set to work. And these young players, again, they don't feel like they have a look in. They don't feel like they have this dream, this aspiration of playing for Chelsea. When you look at the treatment of players like Lamptey, who we let go and now is at Brighton. Tammy Abraham, top goal scorer for Chelsea 2 seasons in a row, benched, doesn't get a look in. Fikayo Tomori, just fleeced off to AC Milan for 20 million quid. And then you look at other players like Sancho, who wasn't getting the game time at Man City that he felt like he deserved. And fair play, he's moved to Borussia Dortmund and now he's just cost Man United an arm and a leg. For me, I feel like that's what these young English players are looking at. They're looking at these other players that are going abroad, making a name for themselves, and they don't want to stay at Chelsea, get loaned out to Vitesse for 3 years in a row, because that's not what football's about. The beauty of football, of being a young player, rising through the ranks, playing for your team, earning the chance to play for your team, is not what's going on at Chelsea at the moment. And as a fan, yes, I'm delighted about all the success that we have, and I'm so grateful for all of the amazing memories that I've had. But once again, it just frustrates me that we don't have these kind of John Terrys or these players that we bring through the academy. Don't get me wrong, Mason Mount is fantastic. I love Mason Mount. I could bang on about him for ages. I also love Tammy Abraham. I could bang on about him for ages. I think he's a brilliant striker. I think he's criminally underrated. I don't think his all-round game is perfect, but I think he's a top quality striker who, for me, is top 10 striker in the Premier League because he's in the positions that you want him to be in when the ball is in the box. He gets himself in there to get those scrappy goals, to make stuff happen. And his hold-up play isn't even that bad, which is why, bringing it back to Lukaku, I really hope that he stays, and I hope that he can take a leaf out of his book, a bit like Lukaku did with Drogba for his short stint there. He said that Drogba was a massive help to him. And if Tammy Abraham becomes anything close to what Lukaku is now, then that would be fantastic. But if we let him go, if we let Tammy Abraham go, it's just another one of those players that we've lost.
Just a quick one, guys. Whilst I've been editing the video, I've just had a news alert come through from Sky Sports that's saying that Roma have agreed a 34 million deal to sign Tammy Abraham. You just can't write this stuff. I've just poured my heart out into this video about how much I love Tammy Abraham, how we need to nurture these players. You've heard it all. And now we've gone and agreed a deal to sell him. It just shows what I've been saying. It's a shame.
And as I said, the Chelsea system is cutthroat, and that doesn't just affect the players, it affects the managers. Di Matteo was sacked the year after winning the Champions League. Mourinho was sacked the year after winning the Premier League. Conte was sacked the year after he won the Premier League and the same year that he won the FA Cup. Maurizio Sarri was never really a good fit at Chelsea, in my opinion, and his sacking, I can understand that, because he didn't really get the club. He clearly wasn't happy there. That whole dispute with Kepa, he never really recovered from. But Lampard, I've spoken to you earlier about Lampard and how it frustrates me that we've got this player that is trying to revitalise Chelsea and turn them into this team that gives young players inspiration, that they can dream and they can break into the first team. But then we got rid of him in his first spell that wasn't going well. We were 4 points off the top 4 when they sacked him. Chelsea just scraped top 4 with Thomas Tuchel. Obviously we won a Champions League. I'm not saying we would have won the Champions League with Frank Lampard, but look, Thomas Tuchel is a fantastic manager, and this isn't bashing him. This isn't bashing Lukaku, who's coming in at all. This also isn't bashing the fact that we have success, because as I keep on saying, I'm so lucky to see my team win so many trophies. There might be fans of other clubs watching this video right now thinking that I'm ungrateful and thinking that I don't know how lucky I've got it. But believe me, I do. And this isn't the argument that I'm making. I'm not arguing saying that I think Chelsea should be a worse off side. I'm just saying that from a Chelsea perspective, it really frustrates me, the fact that we just let these players go for cheap and end up spending ridiculous amounts of money on these fantastic players that may or may not work. But I want to bring it back to Lukaku, because I've rambled long enough about how this deal reflects badly on Chelsea and how it outlines how poorly I think the club is run. But at the same time, I'm just some 20-year-old Chelsea fan. What do I know? I'm excited that Romelu Lukaku's coming in, and I do genuinely believe that he'll be a fantastic fit. But I've made my points about why I'm not overly happy about this deal and why it highlights the way that Chelsea's run and why I don't think that works. I hope you guys can kind of understand that. I want you guys to let me know what you think about the things that I've said. Maybe you're seeing things that I don't see. That's just how I feel as a Chelsea fan, and re-signing a player that you sold for 30 million and then buying him back for 100 million isn't good business. Like, negatives aside, I am really excited for Lukaku, and I think that he's going to really help us challenge for the title. I think when you look at our attacking and creative talent in Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Christian Pulisic, I think that Lukaku's hardly going to be feeding off scraps. I think he's going to get over 20 goals. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. As I said, I'm delighted that Chelsea, although I might not look it, I am delighted that Chelsea are bringing in Lukaku, and I think it's only going to bring good things for the club. Hopefully more success, because this is the most successful period Chelsea have ever had, and I'm lucky to be growing up in that period of time. Let me know as well if you've liked this different kind of video where I'm just talking to you. I know it's been quite negative, But I quite like talking to you guys. It's quite nice to let out how I feel about things football related, and hopefully read what you guys think. So let me know what you think about the Lukaku deal. Let me know what you think I've said. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and love. Take care.